This is a video I've been meaning to make for a while, and it is going through the FIA's report into what took place at Abu Dhabi 2021. It's probably the first of several times that I'll break this down, because the more times you go through it, the more that you can pick out. So what I'm hoping is that the people that are knowledgeable people that do come to the channel and contribute in a positive manner, anything that you pick out, please comment it in the comments section. It can add to all of our perspective of the actual situation, and then that'll help me when I produce maybe an enhanced version of this over the next few weeks. So this report that the FIA produced after Abu Dhabi, it took them until the 19th of March. So it took them in excess of 3 months to produce this report. Now, it's rather strange that it took them 3 months to create this whitewash, because some of us were saying immediately after the event what the problem was. Um, Let me just give you this example here. I've now been banned from the BBC from commenting on their thing. So my last thing that got published, I believe, was Andrew, please respond to my video about your corruption sent to you on Twitter. Or available on my YouTube channel fixed, and then they've blocked me from commenting on the BBC. Anyway, what it does display is down here on the 14th of December 2021, just 2 days after the fraud. I stated on the BBC comments section, not giving Sainz a clear chance to attack both Hamilton and Verstappen at the restart in the same way the lap cars were cleared to allow Verstappen to clear into Hamilton is a key point that F1 and the FIA will not be able to defend against. F1 isn't about manufacturing a two-car shootout, it's about creating the same racing environment for all competitors, a manufactured farce. I was able to say that 2 days after the event. I emailed the FIA, I emailed Sky Sports F1, I emailed the BBC. Nobody said anything, have they? But instead, it took the FIA 3 months to concoct this. Now, what they did with this is they then got the World Motorsport Council to rubber stamp it, ratify it, go, yeah, what a great report this is. And so it's the likes of these. I don't know whether this was all the people involved at the time that ratified that report and basically said, yes, we all agree with that report. What a fantastic report into what took place. Now, what you've got here, the guy with the yellow tie, Gary Connolly, one of the corrupt stewards. And then you got all these little weasels in and around him. John Todd, who was the head of the FIA at the time of the Abu Dhabi fraud. Okay, superseded by Mohammed Ben Sulayem, who's back here. And I think you got Where's Wally? There he is. Binotto, back there. You might be able to pick out some of the other faces. These spineless individuals that just nodded their heads and just went, yeah, where do we sign just to say that this is fine? Spineless, corrupt individuals that stand there in their suits as people of integrity will present themselves as having expertise in motorsport, as being part of this facade of a council. And this is what they signed off and ratified. So to the FIA World Motorsports Council, dated the 19th of March 2022. And it's regarding executive, there you go, summary of the analysis and clarification exercise conducted by the FIA following the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Now, this is a 7-page document, so obviously this video is going to go on a bit going through it. Now, people's expectations is somewhat irrelevant, all right? But what is true is that many people in the aftermath of Abu Dhabi 2021, which took place on the 12th of the 12th, 2021, were outraged at the clear sporting injustice and felt that the FIA, the governing body of the sport, had an obligation to take the appropriate measures to rectify the situation. That is a reasonable expectation. As a governing body of the sport, then that is a requirement of the sport to take the appropriate measures. This isn't the appropriate measures in any way, shape, or form. The notion of Mercedes having to appeal is is a cop out. All right. As a governing body, if you oversee sport and it is clearly not right, you don't impose the notion of, well, in order for us to assess this, you have to lodge an appeal. No, you set a precedent and you say you don't need to appeal. We, as the governing body, need to do something about this. We need to rectify it. It's our responsibility as the governing body of the sport to ensure that the right thing is done here. So the Mercedes appeal should be completely irrelevant. Obviously, the lawyer type will argue otherwise, but it's all about taking responsibility in this world for ensuring the right thing is done. So anyway, what they did, they strung it out for 3 months. They waited until the beginning of the 2022 season was upon us. Qualifying was just about to start for the first Grand Prix of the 2022 season, and they dropped this report at a time where it's, oh, here it is, but look over there, everybody, it's exciting, it's exciting, it's exciting, wow! Everybody's moved on already. But this report's been signed off by the World Motorsport Council. So, introduction. This report has been drawn up to present to the World Motorsport Council members the conclusions arising from the analysis of the events that took place during the last 5 laps of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, counting towards the 2021 FIA Formula One World Championship. The sole purpose of this report is to draw any lessons from this situation and clarity to be provided to the participants, media, and fans about the current regulations to preserve the competitive nature of our sport whilst ensuring the safety of the drivers and officials. So it states it there. The only purpose of this report is to draw lessons from the situation, not to overturn anything. They're not taking responsibility. So what they are now going to present is the situation and what lessons we must learn from this. And I'll take you through what a load of shit it is. And actually, it could have been written better by a child. So, what they describe as the facts, the on-track events. On the 12th of December 2021, on lap 53 of 58 of the race of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix held at the Yas Marina circuit in the United Arab Emirates, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the last competition counting towards the 2021 FIA Formula One World Championship, Nicholas Latifi, Williams Racing, crashed into the barrier at the exit of turn 14 at 18:21:37 local time. Marshals were required to remove the car and debris from the track. At this point, the racing order was as follows. Number 1, Lewis Hamilton, Ham, there in the bold, Mercedes-AMG Petronas, F1 team, Mercedes in bold. Number 2, Max Verstappen, Red Bull Racing Honda, Red Bull in bold. And number 3, Sergio Perez, Red Bull. No PER in bold there. No mention of number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way down to 14th in that race. 15th in the race, wasn't it, really? Yeah, it was 15 in the race prior to Perez's retirement. They only mentioned those 3. Marshals immediately displayed double waved yellow flags in that sector. Okay, thanks for that. We move down to point 2. At the time of the crash, both Ham and were driving on hard compound tyres. Okay, so why are we diverting attention to believe that it's the tyre compound that is the important factor that we need to learn from here? Because the point of this exercise is to think of the things we need to learn from. Here are the facts. They were both on hard compound tyres. Ham having undertaken 1 previous tyre change, having undertaken 2 previous tyre changes. It's irrelevant. It's absolutely irrelevant. There is some dubious things going on there, but it's nothing to do with this report. At 18:21:54 local time, the safety car was deployed by race control. Pitted for new soft compound tyres. Ham remained out on track on hard compound tyres behind the safety car. Once the field was under control behind the safety car, the recovery of N. Latifi's car began. The speed of the recovery was, however, slower than anticipated. Is this part of your facts still? The speed of recovery was, however, slower than anticipated. Whose fact is that? Whose anticipation are we talking about? Which person was anticipating the recovery time, and because it could have been different according to person, couldn't it? Is this a fact? Is it slower than the average time that such an incident would take place, or is it just slower than some projected thought? Slower than anticipated, due in part to the car's brakes having caught fire. On lap 55 of 58, the recovery and clean-up of the incident continued. Yes, it did. On lap 56 of 58, the recovery and clean-up of the incident continued, because we've got the in-car footage of Nicholas Latifi's driver cam panning round onto the track, and there's still marshals on that track sweeping it up at the moment in time where the message is given out: lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. We've also got the global feed view of when the cars passed that incident on lap 56, that the marshals are jumping over the barriers. But in this report, they have to write that it's on lap 55, the recovery and the cleanup of the incident continue. Again, not factually incorrect, but why draw the attention to just lap 55? So, at 18:27:55 local time, with the race on lap 56 of 58 and the safety car still on the track, as there was still significant debris being cleared by the marshals on the track. Yes, so they've acknowledged that lap 56 there's still significant debris being cleared by the marshals. The standard message, lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake, was published. That's not a standard message. You've never seen it before. There's a reason you've never seen it before. It's because it's not a standard message. This is a fraud. They are projecting something to be true that's not the true. What appears in the regulations 48.12 is, if it is unsafe to do so, the message overtaking will not be permitted will be sent to all competitors. Not lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. That line there is a fraud. That is a lie that is being presented. Nobody in the World Motorsport Council was able to identify that and go, well, that's not true. All of the men in suits, all of these people, these knowledgeable people of integrity, highly qualified, experts in their field, they didn't work that out, did they? They just went, oh, yes, where do I sign? Where do I need to sign? Or where do I need to put my hand up to vote that we're all in favour of the approving the report? Yes, we all put our hand up now. Anybody against? No, don't be against it. That's fine. That was published, which led to confusion amongst the teams. Is that a fact? That the teams were confused? Or were the teams basing their strategy on regulations which then weren't being carried out? Is it confusing, or is it that they're all part of understanding that, oh, we are going to try and manipulate this to ensure it ends as a race, and we're just seeing how they're doing it? Is it confusion, or is that just how you want to project it? It was published, which led to confusion amongst the teams as they were preparing for the unlapping procedure. How do the teams prepare for the unlapping procedure? You see, you don't prepare for being told to now unlap, right? All you do is you stay in that safety car, Snake. You maybe do some tyre management by warming those tyres up. The teams might be instructing their drivers to adjust brake balance settings or throttle maps on their steering wheel. They might be trying to do that. They're not preparing for anything. What they're doing, they're waiting for an instruction. The instruction will come from race control when the clerk of the course has declared the track safe, and then race control will relay to the teams and drivers, okay, now you carry out this procedure. Where's your preparation? Where's the confusion? Just stay in the safety car. We're waiting for it to hear from race control. But the teams were confused because they were preparing, says the child writing the report. At this point, the racing order was Ham, Ver, and now Carlos Sainz. Scuderia, Ferrari, Mission, Winnow. Well, why we needed to put that in the report, who knows? Maybe one of the World Motorsport Council is linked to these and therefore wanted this. They wanted that bit of publicity in the document. Who knows? S. Perez, having retired. We need to retire the car. We need to retire the car. Box. Really? Yep, box. Several radio exchanges took place between Red Bull and Race Control. See details on page 4. This is the finding of facts. Okay. Thanks for these valuable facts, everybody. At 18:31:01 local time, with the race on lap 57 of 58 and the safety car still on track. Right, this is key. 57 of 58. So what we don't talk about is there being marshals on the track at the end of lap 56. What we don't talk about is that this mandatory procedure that needs to be carried out has to be began and enacted on lap 56 so that the cars that qualified to be released, all 8 in this situation, pass the leader in the safety car on lap 56, because that's the only way that this race can validly restart, because lap 57 is the mandatory lap afforded to those released cars with which to afford them the opportunity of making it around that track and linking back up with that safety car snake. And having carried out that procedure, that's the only way that you can restart racing for lap 58, the final lap of the race, to be a racing lap. It wasn't done on lap 56. It wasn't possible to do that on lap 56 because the clerk of the course had not declared the track safe on lap 56 because there were marshals still working on the track. So it wasn't safe. So therefore we're now on lap 57. That dictates that this needs to be a safety car finish, but number 4 of our report doesn't tell us that. It says, with the race on lap 57 and 58 and the safety car still on the track was clear, and the message lapped cars 4 Norris, 14 Alonso, 31 Ocon, 16 Leclerc, 5 Vettel to overtake safety car. So this was at a point of the track that's between turn 6 and 9. So when you look at tracker view of the track, top left-hand corner down to bottom left-hand corner, that section of the track, okay, turn 6 down to turn 9 is when this message was given to these cars, and them 5 cars managed to pass the leader in the safety car just around about turn 9, and it's ending. Wow. Okay, so i.e. only 5 lapped cars between Ham and Verstappen were published on timing page 3 and official messaging system. 3 further lapped cars remained behind Ver. Okay, 2 of them were directly behind Verstappen, and then 1 was behind Bottas, separating Tsunoda from Bottas. That was Mick Schumacher. It was Ricciardo and Stroll that separated Carlos Sainz from Max Verstappen. 3rd place, Carlos Sainz. So, 3 Ricciardo, car 18 Stroll, and car 47 Schumacher. They're the 3 that weren't unlapped. Those 3 lapped cars were not directed to and did not overtake Ver or others. Mercedes made a remark to race control by radio. See details. This is a fact that Mercedes made a remark, everybody. Thank you for your detail there. It's a fact that Mercedes made a remark. It's remarkable, that is. Number 5, race control subsequently notified the teams on lap 57 of 58 as follows: safety car in this lap. Okay, yeah, that's what you did. Okay, are you allowed to do that? It's wrong to do that. What skews did you cause? What unfair outcomes did you cause by doing that? Oh, you're just stating the facts of what actually happened here, aren't you? Okay, thanks for that. Number 6, at 18:32 local time, with the race entering lap 58, the final lap. And here is a key. With the race entering lap 58, the message track clear and clear in track sector 18 were published. So what you're telling us as one of your facts is that safety car in this lap was given by race control prior to track clear. This is a chronology, you've listed it. So the FIA are admitting in their report that they have withdrawn the safety car prior to the track being declared clear. Well, that's a clear breach, isn't it? That's a clear breach of health and safety. That's a clear breach of regulation. But this is their facts, everybody. So with the race entering, so we're starting that final lap as a racing lap, and it's only as they're just starting the lap that they then receive the message that the track is clear. So that race has got underway before the track is declared clear. This allowed for green flag racing conditions on the final lap. Unbelievable. Anyway, number 7, on lap 58 of 58, Ver overtook Ham at turn 5 and took the lead in the race. At turn 9, Ham almost touched Ver whilst trying to overtake him. Lewis nearly crashed into Max. Do you want to talk us about Max's overtake at turn 5? And he nearly missed. Well, he didn't hit the apex, and he drove Lewis very wide at that corner. Do you want to talk us through that? Or you just want to talk us that Ham almost touched? Is this your facts? Is it? You want to pick out that Ham almost touched Ver. You don't want to pick out that Ver almost touched Ham. You don't want to pick out that Ver was weaving down that straight towards turn 6. But you do want to find in your found facts that whilst trying to overtake him, Ham nearly touched him. But Ver stayed ahead and crossed the finish line first. Ham crossed the finish line second. 8. At 18:33 local time, the message checkered flag was published. Yes, because we need to see the official message. Lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake, just like the official message checkered flag. Or is it just a wave checkered flag? Right. B. Protests, hearings and stewards' decisions. Number 9. At 19:01 local time, Mercedes filed 2 notices of protest pursuant to Article 17 of the 2021 Formula One sporting regulations. Now that there is enough to make people switch off. Oh, it's pursuant to Article 17 of... I have no idea what this means, so I just have to believe it, everybody. Okay, but don't switch off. I'll make sure that you believe it. Okay? And Articles 13.1 to 13.5 of the 2021 International Sporting Code, the first protest alleged a breach of Article... So it's basically how you protest, all right? That's all it would mean. The first protest alleged a breach of Article 48.8 of the F1 sporting regulations on the basis that Ver overtook Ham during the safety car period. Well, it's not an allegation, it's a statement of fact. It's a statement of fact that that's what he did, because there exists evidence of him doing that. You're not saying, I think he overtook there. No, he did overtake there because his car went ahead there. That is a factual occurrence. All right, so it's not an allegation, it's a statement of fact. The second protest alleged, again, making an allegation, again, it's not an allegation, it's a statement of fact, that there'd been a breach of Article 48.12 of the F1 sporting regulations during the race, and sought an amendment to the race classification as a result. The protest. So again, that's not an allegation, that is a statement of fact. There was a breach of 48.12 of the sporting regulations. That is categorically a fact. That took place. That article was breached. It's not an allegation. Point 10. At 1945, now this is what we're all conditioned with, is a notion of, oh, but you're not allowed to say it, okay? You stating that something is wrong, you're not allowed to state that something's wrong. You have to propose and ask somebody the question whether that's wrong or not, and then only a judge can decide, because you are not allowed to judge whether it's right or wrong. No, I clearly am capable of determining right from wrong. I'm clearly capable of being able to understand what the regulations are and observe that that is not what took place. Very simple, isn't it? But if they do it their way, oh, you don't know. You have to ask the question, and then the judge can contrive the answer to decide how they want the outcome to be. Don't you worry, little heads. Law is very complicated. Very complicated is law. It's all about how we want to manipulate the outcome, and so therefore we use word salad to gaslight and confuse to contrive outcomes. Anyway, at 1945 local time, the team representatives of Mercedes and Red Bull were summoned by the stewards for the following reason. Protest by Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team against Car 33, alleged breach of Article 48.8 of the 2021 Formula One sporting regulations, i.e. Car 33 Ver would have overtaken Car 44 Ham during the safety car period at 1832. So point 10 here says at 1945 local time, the team representatives of Mercedes and Red Bull were summoned by the stewards. What are the stewards doing here? Mercedes have submitted a protest to the FIA stewards to state to them that Max Verstappen has breached 48.8, in that he has overtaken Lewis Hamilton during that safety car period. What do those stewards need to do? Well, what them stewards need to do is say, okay, Mercedes are saying Max Verstappen has overtaken Lewis Hamilton during that safety car period. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at where Max Verstappen's car is relative to Lewis Hamilton's car. Did he overtake? Yes, he did. They are right. That is a breach of the regulations. That then attracts a penalty. There is the penalty for that infringement. That is quite simply all that you do. No, but what the stewards decided to do was play legal, everybody, because the judge can't assess the complaint against the facts. No, they have to play the game of whiff-waff. We'll invite them in to present their side of an argument. There's no side of an argument here. It's not an argument. Okay, it's not an exchange of opinions. It's a analysis of the factual situation. But again, people aren't conditioned to understand it to be that way. We'll invite Red Bull in to ask what Red Bull, what they want to argue and try and excuse Max's wrongdoing. It's not about excuses. It's not about hiring a barrister to get you off your crime. You did that. You did that. You've got a responsibility to not do that. You did that. You get a penalty for doing that. That's how it is. 1945. Let's just have a look at this. So at point 10, at 1945 local time, team representative of Mercedes and Red Bull was summoned. So let's just check this out. Document 52. Well, it was at 1925 that Red Bull was summoned to appear at 1945. This is document 52. Okay. So, in respect of the protests of Mercedes about Max overtaking under safety car, at 1925, as it says here on document 52, Red Bull was summoned to appear, to be there by 1945. 1925 was the time. At 1930, on document 53, Mercedes was summoned to appear at that same steward's hearing, a contrived steward's hearing. So 5 minutes beforehand, the stewards summoned Red Bull and then summoned 5 minutes later Mercedes to appear at this facade of a steward's appeal. Can you see what's going on here? So we go to 11 at 20:45 local time. So this is an hour later. The team representatives of Mercedes and Red Bull were summoned by the stewards for the following reason. Protest by Mercedes AMG Petronas F1 team against the classification established at the end of the competition. Alleged breach of Article 48.12 of the 2021 FIA Formula One sporting regulations. So, why are team representatives summoned by the stewards? Again, Mercedes protests is entirely about stating to the FIA for its appointed stewards to assess the complaint, the appeal, with regard to the rules and what actually took place. Mercedes are saying, this is the regulation that didn't take place. You, the FIA, didn't carry out that regulation, and hence this is the action you must take. And the stewards must assess the nature of that complaint relative to the protest, relative to what actually took place, and determine that yes, you are absolutely correct, Mercedes, that process did not take place. You are correct, and we therefore need to amend. No, what did they do? They invited in Red Bull. Now, how did they do this? At 20:45 local time, team representatives were summoned for the following reason. Now, it does say, we'll come back down to it, Red Bull here on 13, near the bottom of the screen, Red Bull there as an interested party. Well, if you've been summoned, you are told that you need to be here, right? That's not just invited. Oh, would you like to come along? Okay, that's different. This is happening. Would you like to come and observe? No, you're summoned. There's a difference there. But again, they don't point that out. We get to document 54 now, which is this one. A team representative is required to report to the stewards at 2015 in relation to the incident below. And this is the breach of Article 48.12. And that was at 1933. This is document 55. A minute later, a team representative of Mercedes is required to report to the stewards at 2015. So once again, Red Bull are required to attend this stewards meeting before Mercedes are given the instruction that they are required to attend. But it does say here that took place. Why has it done that on me? Put it back up there. It does say here that that at 20:45 local time, the team representatives, let me just move this along so I've got it in a better order. Put it there. 20:45 local time, team representatives were summoned by the stewards for the following reason. So this is their factual account that at 20:45 team representatives were summoned, and the documents are saying that it's at 2015. Something is not adding up here. Which child wrote this account? And who said, oh yes, those in favour of ratifying the report. Any objections? No, we'll all just stand here in our suits as men of integrity. So, then we go on to 48.12 here at 22:14 local time, after having heard the representatives of both F1 teams concerned. Why are you hearing why are you hearing from Red Bull if they're only there as an interested party? The stewards issued document 57, whereby they determined that although car 33 did at one stage, for a very short period of time, move slightly in front of car 44, so you're stating that yes, indeed, Max Verstappen did move ahead of Lewis Hamilton's car, which is acknowledgement of the infringement. You're excusing it. It was only for a short period, and it was only slightly, at a time where both cars were accelerating and braking. It did move back behind car 14, and it was not at fault when the safety car period ended. Not in front, sorry, when the safety car period ended, i.e. at the line. Accordingly, the protest is dismissed. We've seen other incidents where, when the race restarts, when the safety car period ended, the cars are where they need to be. But it's when they've overtaken or moved out of position during that period is what the penalty's for, isn't it? So you've come up with this fluff, this guff, to excuse not giving him a penalty, even though you've acknowledged that, yes, he is guilty of that infringement. So he's guilty of the infringement, and you've refused to apply a penalty, the applicable penalty for that infringement. That's what the FIA have done. Selective application of their penalties to determine the outcome of an event. Well, that's fraud. That's manipulation. That's sport fixing. At 23:03 local time, after having heard the representatives of Mercedes and those of Red Bull as an interested party that were summoned there, and the race director, you don't need to hear from the race director. You just need to look at what happened, look at the regulations, determine, did what happen comply with the regulations? No, it didn't. Therefore, what took place was wrong. Therefore, what took place after that is invalid, and therefore we need to reinstate to a position the last point in time where this was valid, which was the end of lap 56. On lap 57, the rules and regulations of this sport were broken by selecting just 5 cars of the 8 that were required to unlap. You acted in breach of those regulations. Lap 57 of the sport, of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, you broke the rules of the sport, invalidating lap 57 and what took place beyond that. Therefore, it is permissible to declare the result of that race as the running order at the end of lap 56. Very simple. So, but Mercedes barrister couldn't work that out. He's the legal expert, the expert of sports law, but don't you worry about that. And the race director. The stewards issued document 58, the decision, whereby they determined that Article 15.3 allows the race director to control the use of the safety car, which in our determination includes its deployment and withdrawal, and that although Article 48.12 may not have been applied fully in relation to the safety car returning to the pits at the end of the following lap, Article 48.13 overrides that, and once the message safety car in this lap has been displayed, it is mandatory to withdraw the safety car at the end of that lap. So we'll continue this on, but let's just break this down. You're trying to suggest that 48.12 isn't mandatory, but you've picked and chosen something that you want to pick and choose to manipulate it your way by saying 48.12 isn't mandatory, but 48.13 is mandatory. Well, what happens if you do it that way? Well, what happens if you interpret it that way? What does that interpretation produce? Well, what it produced was an invalid restart condition, because what you did, You blocked off third place from challenging for the top two positions. You left him significantly disadvantaged. What you did, you put a car in between fourth and fifth, disadvantaging fifth on those fresh soft compound tyres. Fifth was still able to overcome that, as was sixth. But that's the nature of what they know the capabilities of qualifying trim is that Max Verstappen was in. What you did was seventh place Lando Norris. You made it so that he wasn't capable of challenging sixth place Gasly in that race. By not carrying out 48.12, you've obliterated the notion of sporting fairness to all competitors, which is stated in the FIA International Sporting Code, that these regulations shall never be applied in such a manner that it will prevent or impede sporting contest, which is what you've done through the notion of that supposed interpretation. That supposed interpretation had not been proposed in any of the previous 198 Grand Prix where these regulations had been enforced, which came into force at the beginning of the 2012 season. But conveniently, now you've decided, we've all of a sudden decided that there's possibly another interpretation of these regulations. But when you follow that interpretation through and see what outcome is produced, well, that outcome will demonstrate that that interpretation is wrong. It's not a valid interpretation if what that interpretation produces is something that is not permissible. Hence, that proposal of it could be interpreted this way is entirely wrong. This notion of 48.13 overriding something, no, it doesn't override at all, and it's not mandatory that once that message is given, then it must come in. As soon as you've stated the safety car must come in, it has to come in. That's mandatory to do that. No, it's not. It absolutely isn't. Because all of the procedure may well have been carried out. However, and the message, right, safety car coming in this lap, has been given to everybody, so everybody knows and everybody's preparing to get the race underway again. But then if the race director, if race control or the clerk of the course identifies, we've now just seen there's another safety concern that needs dealing with. Actually, we can't go racing again, yet we have to deal with this new safety concern that we've just identified. Therefore, we override 48.13 and keep the safety car on the track. This is the race director applying 15.3 validly, using his authority to oversee the event on the grounds of overseeing safety. And you keep the car on track, the safety car on track. And you keep those competitors lapping behind it until the safety issue is dealt with. So it is in no way mandatory that you have to withdraw it once you've given out that message. Entire lies. What is mandatory is that once the race director has selected, using his authority to deal with a safety concern by utilising the safety car, it is mandatory that he carries out Regulation 48 of that International Sporting Code. Mandatory. When cars haven't been lapped, it's 48.10, whereby the safety car will remain on the track at least until the leader is behind it and all of the other cars are bunched behind the leader, creating a snake of cars that are in the correct race order with all of the previously built up advantages between all competitors wiped out, creating the scratch condition for the restart. When lapping in a race has happened, you carry out 48.12, which is the release of those lap cars, affording those release cars to make it around the track to link up with the back of that safety car snake to again achieve that scratch restart condition. All of the cars in the correct race order with all of the previously put up advantages between all competitors wiped out. That is the only way you resume racing once a race has been neutralised due to having to intervene in it to deal with a safety incident by utilising the safety car. Very simple, but the FIA, in writing this document, cannot say that. They cannot identify that. They talk about document 58. What document's that? 55. Let's go back to here. Which one's 58? Decision, I'm guessing. We'll have a look at that one. Document 58. So this is the decision. There are your four stewards: Connolly, Warwick, Holter, and Mohammed Al-Hashmi. So, and there's the protest filed, and the decision is dismissed, and it says they're summoned at 2015. Well, we in their final report it says summoned at 2045. And it's got the representative Meadows, Shoveling, Paul Harris, the Queen's Counsel barrister back then when the Queen was alive, and on behalf of Red Bull as interested parties who were summoned and then sent away to construct their argument. Wheatley, Horner and Newey, people who now need to be banned from the sport for their corruption. Red Bull as an interested party were permitted, or were they summoned? You see here it says a team representative is required. So that's a summons requiring them to attend. Here you're saying they're permitted to attend. What's going on here? The hearing adjourned at 2050 to allow Red Bull to consider its response in further detail. So, according to which document did they summon? Did they arrive there at 2015 or did they arrive there at 2045? We don't know. What we do know is that 2050, according to this document, which one of these is real, which is fraudulent, Red Bull, the hearing's adjourned to allow Red Bull to consider what it wants to say. It's not about what Red Bull wants to say, it's about comparing what happened with the regulations. Gives them 40 minutes to go away and construct an argument. And it bring back into the reconvened hearing Michael Massey, who Red Bull were coercing during that situation. At the hearing, there were no objections to the composition of the stewards panel. So our Queen's Counsel barrister didn't object to the presence of Red Bull and didn't object to the notion of Red Bull presenting their side of the argument. This is our legal expert that understands legal process, everybody. Not the simple determination of right and wrong within the context of a given situation. And how you compare facts. What factually took place with what is factually permitted to take place. No, we'll have a game of whiff-waff over it. Oh, that's what the barrister is used to. At the hearing, there were no objections about the stewards. At the hearing, the parties referred to the documents. Red Bull submitted graphical information. We don't get to see Exhibit A. That had been interesting. Claims of Mercedes. Mercedes claimed there were two breaches of the regulations, and that one that says any cars lapped by the leader will be required, yes, to pass. And once the last lapped cars pass the leader, the safety car will return to the pits at the end of the following lap. Okay, that's not a claim. Okay, that is a statement of fact. Okay, it's not a comparison of what somebody claims about a situation. That is a factual account of what took place. Mercedes argued it's not an argument. Okay, it's a statement of fact. That had this been complied with, car 44 would have won the race. Well, what would have happened had this been complied with is that the race would have ended behind the safety car. And providing Lewis Hamilton would have kept his car on track and not suffered mechanical failure or puncture, then he, yes, would have won that race. Now, what was evidenced is that Lewis Hamilton did not suffer mechanical failure or puncture at racing speeds. So you can extrapolate that and say, well, he did complete the distance. He therefore would likely to have completed that distance under safety car without suffering the failure, because he certainly didn't suffer the failure when the situation was more stressed. And hence, yes, it would have been a safety car finish. And yes, Lewis Hamilton would have maintained that first position. They therefore requested the stewards amend the classification under Article 11.9.3h of the International Sporting Code. And I've scrolled down too much there. And Red Bull argument in defence. It's not a defence. It's not a defence because Red Bull aren't the defendants here. The defendants are the FIA, the governing body. Okay, the governing body, you are the people that acted in breach of your own regulations, and you need to take ownership of the fact that, yes, you acted in breach of them and therefore need to rectify them. It's not Red Bull's argument to make. But they argue the notion, they start getting legal with everybody. Any doesn't mean all. No, the regulations refer to the use of the word any because if all don't qualify, then it's not all cars. It's only the cars that meet the qualifying criteria to be released. In this set of circumstances, all cars met that qualifying criteria. All, therefore, needed to be released. So, point 1 is not a valid point, Red Bull. Number 2, the Article 48.13 of the sporting regulations states that the message safety car in this lap is the signal that it will enter the pit lane at the end of that lap. Well done, Red Bull. You were able to read something that says that the message safety car in this lap is a signal that will enter the pits at the end of that lap. Yes, that's usually what it means, Red Bull. Thanks. Well done for creating point 2. That means nothing. Point 3, therefore, Article 48.13 overrides Article 48.12. No, Red Bull. These are a set of regulations that all must be carried out if they are applicable. 48.12 was not carried out. Therefore, that is where we stop. It wasn't carried out, therefore things weren't done correctly. You cannot then say, oh, but then the next one was thrown and that overrides the thing that didn't happen. No, completely false. And not only is it completely false, as I've already stated, 48.13 is not a mandatory thing that you must carry through because you've said it. Say, I've said safety car in, so the safety car must come in. No. As I've said, if you then identify after giving that notification that drivers, the safety car's coming in now, if you see another safety concern, you can say, cancel that. There is a further safety issue. The safety car will remain on track. So therefore, it's not mandatory that the safety car comes in the moment you've stated that it is going to. So again, point 3 of Red Bull's argument in defence that they shouldn't be even allowed to be putting forward is rubbish. Point number 4, the Article 50.3 gives the race director overriding authority over the use of the safety car. Yes, that overriding authority is on the ground of ensuring safety and ensuring that the regulations are carried out to ensure sporting fairness. So what that gives him the overriding authority to do is to choose to deal with an incident by utilising the safety car. Once he's made that choice, you carry out those regulations that apply to the use of the safety car. And the notion of when that safety car withdrawn is what the race director has the overriding authority over, but that only kicks in once he's carried out the minimum requirement of those regulations. You cannot withdraw the safety car prior to carrying out 48.12. It produces skewed outcomes, obliterates sporting fairness to those competitors, and hence is not a valid application. What he can do is prolong the use of the safety car, which Massey demonstrated that he did on 4 occasions. On the times that Massey deployed the safety car in his 3-year stint as race director, there were multiple times where he performed 48.12 entirely correctly. But 4 times that he did that, he actually kept that safety car on track for a yet further lap beyond the mandatory extra lap. And that was Brazil 2019, Spain 2019, Sakhir 2020, and Eiffel 2020, I think it was. And why he did that was that those release cars hadn't fully caught the back of the pack. So to ensure sporting fairness, rather than resume the race with these lapped cars that were released, now still adrift, now left disadvantaged relative to the cars they were previously trying to challenge in that race prior to the safety incident. No, he kept that safety car on track for yet a further lap to ensure that those release cars fully caught the back of the pack, achieved the restart condition of there being a snake of cars, nose to tail, in the correct race order, achieving that scratch position, the restart condition. That is what Michael Masi factually did. So this point by Red Bull is entirely false. Point 5, that even if all cars had been lapped, 8 in total, of which 5 were allowed to overtake the safety car, it would not change the outcome of the race. What they're trying to do is lie, gaslight, divert your attention. Because the key thing here is those lapped cars were released on lap 57. It was not possible to release them on lap 56 because there were marshals on the track at that point in time, so the track could not be declared safe. With the earliest point that could happen being on lap 57, the safety car will return to the pits at the end of the following lap, which is at the end of lap 58. That dictates it's a safety car finish. That means that the outcome of the race is a safety car finish, and the outcome of the race is Lewis Hamilton wins that race. So point 5 is completely false as well. 5 points raised by Red Bull, all false and all sided with by the stewards. This is corruption through and through. This is the governing body of the sport being entirely fraudulent. Race director's evidence. So, this is Michael Masi, states that the purpose of 48.12 was to remove the lapped cars that would interfere in racing between the leaders, and that in his view, Article 48.13 was the one that applied in this case. Absolute lies. He didn't remove the 2 cars, Ricciardo and Stroll, that would interfere with the race between second and third, did he? So that just obliterates that lie from Masi. Every other time he's deployed the safety car and carried out the regulation correctly, he's got it right then. Why has he got it wrong now? The race director also stated it had been agreed by all the teams that where possible it was highly desirable for the race to end in green conditions. Irrelevant. A desire for an event to end a certain way is not an excuse to break the rules to make it end a certain way, compromising sporting fairness to all competitors. Compromising safety. Your track wasn't clear when you set that up as well. It's a fallacy. The teams that that play in the World Cup final of football, they might have a long-standing agreement of the teams that ideally we'd like to see a winner in normal play rather than see the winner being decided on penalties. It's been long agreed by all of the teams that play football. They'd much rather see the game end in normal time with goals rather than it go to penalty shootouts. So because of this, the referee of the World Cup final didn't blow his whistle at the end of full time. He just let them play on and said, next goal's the winner, everybody. Because it had long been agreed that the teams didn't really want to have a penalty shootout. It's all a lie, isn't it? It's all a lie. And it's not allowed. So, we'll come down the conclusions of the stewards. Stewards consider the protest is admissible. So we'll take your money for the protest, Mercedes. But having considered the various statements made by the parties, the stewards determine that Article 15.3 does allow the race director to control the use of the safety car, which in our determination includes its deployment and withdrawal. What you didn't get is the FIA, their own court, their own legal saying, no, stewards, you've got this wrong. We've got an obligation as a governing body to correct this. They didn't do that, did they? And that although Article 48.12 may not have been fully applied fully, so you see, we've got these bodies that are there to uphold the standards, uphold the rules and regulations. But then you have a process which, oh, unless somebody complains, we just sit back and allow something wrong to be wrong. Oh, that's the way the legal system works, everybody. No, they don't intervene, do they? No, they only intervene when they're being paid to intervene, or when they're being instructed to intervene by whoever's instructing them. Otherwise, they just allow the injustice to take place and to happen. They allow it. So, although Article 48.2 may not have been applied for, what do you mean may not? It clearly wasn't in relation to the safety car return to the pits at the end of the following lap, because that didn't happen. The Article 48.13 overrides that, and once the message safety car in this lap has been displayed, it's mandatory. That's entirely false. Why did the FIA's court system, the FIA governing body, the FIA legal say no, that's false as well? That notwithstanding Mercedes' request that the stewards remediate the matter by amending the classification to reflect the positions at the end of the penultimate lap, that this is a step that the stewards believe is effectively shortening the race retrospectively and hence not appropriate. So that the stewards, what they think is appropriate is to allow the fraud, allow the all the atrocity that took place by breaking the rules, and want to allow the race to conclude in that fashion, because they think that cutting the race off at the point where it was still valid, just prior to those rules being broken, that's not the appropriate way of handling the situation. What's more appropriate than that is actually allowing the conclusion having broken the rules. That's what the stewards want to manufacture the outcome as, and legally that's what the lawyers will then argue. No, I argue for allowing the corrupt result to stand because that's more appropriate, and that's what they're paying me to argue. And they'll come up with all sorts of word salad to try and justify that notion. Accordingly, the protest is dismissed, and the protest deposit, about £5,000 I think it was, is not refunded. And they have the right to appeal under the stewards, right, under that article. So that was that from them there. So we go back to this report. 23:03 local time. After having heard the representatives of Mercedes and those of Red Bull as an interested party who were summoned there, and the race director, the stewards issued document 58, which I've just gone through, the decision, whereby they determine that Article 53 allows the race director to control the use of the safety car, which in our determination includes its deployment and withdrawal. No, not like that. Not without carrying out the mandatory regulations that come into force the moment you opt to deploy it. Okay, and that although Article 48.12 may not, it categorically wasn't. It's not a case of may not. Look at the language used. Have been applied fully in relation to the safety car returning to the pits at the end of the following lap. Article 48.13 overrides. No, it doesn't. There is no overriding. The moment you fail to apply one of them correctly is the moment you've breached the regulations. Anything that then takes place beyond that is invalid. And the notion of safety car in this lap, it's mandatory to withdraw the safety car. That's an utter falsehood, as I've explained twice. So, utter falsehood. Page 2 of 7. Notwithstanding Mercedes' request that the stewards remediate the matter by amending the classification to reflect the positions at the end of the penultimate lap, this is a step that the stewards believe is effectively shortening the race retrospectively and hence not appropriate. Accordingly, the protest is dismissed. And as I've said, they've chose that it's appropriate to stay with a corrupt outcome rather than amend it to an outcome that was valid. You are allowed to declare a result that is a shortened race result prior to the full distance. You absolutely are. That is within the regulations that's possible. And what you're also allowed to do is amend the result after a Grand Prix when penalties are applied. So you didn't apply the penalty to Verstappen, so you had the option of just saying, well, this is the simple way of doing this. Apply a 5-second or 10-second penalty to Verstappen for the infringement. Okay, then you can ignore the fact that the regulations were broken. Or what we can do is acknowledge the regulations were broken because they were broken and amend to the point where they weren't broken, where it was still valid. That's the final result. Because sport had still taken place. For 56 of 58 laps, that was still valid sport where the regulations were not breached. That's long enough to declare a result of that sport, a valid result of that sport. Oh, you didn't want to do that. You didn't think that that was the appropriate thing to do. Number 14. At 23:22 local time, within 1 hour of the publication of the decision, see Article 15 of the International Sporting Code and Article 10.1.1 of the FIA Judicial and Disciplinary Rules, Mercedes notified the stewards in writing of its intention to appeal in respect of the stewards' decision regarding Article 48.12 protest. The deadline for lodging this appeal before the FIA International Court of Appeal was the 16th of December 2021, 8:22 p.m. CET, Central European Time, I'm guessing. 15. Mercedes did not submit a notification of appeal by the deadline or at any time thereafter, but rather confirmed publicly on the 16th of December 2021 that it was withdrawing its appeal. So why did Mercedes capitulate? Why did they not follow through on that valid protest that would have changed the outcome of the 2021 championship? Why did you capitulate, Mercedes? Because that is not authentic behavior. That is not you standing up appropriately for your employee, your driver, who was denied his place in history as a record-breaking 8-time world champion. That might have impacted his contract. The money that you, Mercedes, pay him. Is there a conflict of interest there, Mercedes? By Mercedes refusing to go through with the valid protest and getting the end result amended, that would have exposed the fraud in this sport. That would have impacted the value of the sport. That would have impacted the value of the Mercedes AMG Petronas Formula One team, of which Toto Wolff, the decision maker, is a 1/3 shareholder of, and his wealth is likely to have increased by £500 million in the aftermath of Abu Dhabi 2021. Had he have appealed, had the sport have been brought into disrepute by exposing to the world that it was fraudulent, his 1 billion share of the team would have decreased. Well, there's a conflict of interest there of the parties involved, isn't there? We have not taken the action to get a just outcome to this. They've taken the action that benefits them financially, benefits them all financially. This is corruption. This is the blueprint of corruption. So, Mercedes did not submit notification of the appeal by the deadline or any time after, but rather confirmed publicly on the 16th that it was withdrawing the appeal. We were led to believe that the Mercedes were trusting the FIA to do the right thing was how it was broadcast to us. They waited 3 months and didn't do the right thing. So the key issues and findings, as confirmed by the World Motorsport Council in its statements of the 15th of December 2021, the purpose of the detailed analysis and clarification exercise was to identify any lessons that could be learned from the events that took place at the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and consider how best to provide clarity to F1 participants, fans and media regarding Formula One rules and regulations going forward. So all they're saying is, as is confirmed, the purpose of this, which I'm going through now, is just a clarification exercise. What are you clarifying? Are you clarifying the impact of what you did that was wrong? Are you clarifying just how corrupt it was? The impact, the implications? Are you clarifying any of that? Or are you just saying, oh, yeah, this happened. Yeah, that happened. Yeah, what did that cause? Why is that not allowed to happen? Who did that impact? You're not exposing that, are you? So, number one, multiple roles and responsibilities of the race director. I'll probably get to the end of this page and then have to make another one because I'm realizing this is a long time. This is a long video. We'll get to the end of this page and then I'll do a second part with the other part of this report. So, point 16. The role of the race director is by nature demanding and high pressured. However, a recurrent theme in the detailed analysis and clarification exercise was a concern that the number of roles and responsibilities of the race director that have accumulated over the years might be adding additional pressure to the role. So their findings are, oh, the race director, oh, he's busy. He's busy. He's got a lot to do. Point 16. That's not an excuse for, in the closing stages of a race, wrongly applying a regulation. Oh, but he's got lots of other things to do. He's got to oversee other races in other formulas. He's got to check the tracks around the world to make sure he's not doing any of that, is he? He's not doing any of that, right? That's what he does at other times, right? He's not doing any of that. What he's doing his specific job at that moment in time, which is dealing with race control of that specific race, overseeing a safety concern in that race, and applying the correct protocols relative to that safety concern. He didn't do it. Just said, oh, yeah, but he's a busy man. He has lots of things to do. Not during that time, he didn't. He got that thing to do. So, point 16 is bullshit. It's a child making excuses. Number 17. From 1997 to 2019, the role of race director was held by Charlie Whiting until Charlie died of a pulmonary embolism prior to the season opening Australian Grand Prix in 2019. In addition to the position of race director, Mr. Whiting simultaneously held the positions of FIA safety delegate, permanent starter, and single seat sporting director. Following Mr. Whiting's death, in March of 2019, Mr. Massey was appointed as the new race director. Mr. Massey had previously held the role of deputy race director in F1, F2 and F3 from 2018. Mr. Massey also took over Mr. Whiting's role as safety delegate and, from 2021, single-seater sporting director. That's nice. Is this part of what you learned during this report? Okay, what's relevant about that? 18. Suggestions made by the F1 Commission and those interviewed included that some of the race director's responsibilities should be divided and assigned to other persons to reduce the workload of the race director and allow them to focus on their key functions, including managing and controlling the race. So, why could Michael Massey not focus on carrying out that regulation correctly? Was Michael Massey thinking about being race director of Formula One, Formula Two, and Formula Three? What's the matter? Can you not focus on the given task, Michael? Are you not fit for purpose for doing the job? Well, you were selected. Somebody in the FIA selected you as being good enough for that job. So that's this responsibility of the FIA to make sure that they are choosing somebody with the appropriate attributes to do that role. So whose head's got a role for selecting Michael Massey in the first place? Because he clearly is not up to task. Was Michael Massey's? Was he thinking about? Oh, I've got all these track inspections to do. I've got all these safety reports to write. I've got all these other things that I need to be doing. My head's not on. The last few laps of Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. No, it's not an excuse, is it? It's not an excuse. So, point 18. is a load of bollocks. Okay, yes, what that can be is to say, well, maybe the guy is that maybe the role entitles too much, and maybe we split out a few of those responsibilities from that role. That's not a key finding from the report as to what went wrong with Abu Dhabi 2021. Shouldn't be included in that report. Number 2, radio communications between F1 teams and race director. Now, there's a simplicity to radio communications. Okay, if you've got a radio, right? If you've not got a radio, think about it this way: you've probably got a phone, haven't you? Yeah, probably got a phone, and when it rings, you've got a choice. You can go green or you can go red. You can accept the call or you can decline the call. With a radio, likewise, you can listen to what's being said or you can just turn it off. If you're focusing on your responsibility, your task, it doesn't matter what anybody else is saying. Linked with this as well, Michael Massey's got 9 other people sat around him in race control. There are other people that are there that are perfectly capable of listening to what teams are trying to communicate with race control, the race control team, and if any valid concerns are being put through to race control, then those other 9 people, other than Michael Massey, can act as the filter for that. They can decide what is important and what needs dismissing. Yeah, shut up, not interested in what you're saying, he's doing his job. Oh, actually, this team has got a valid concern here. I will voice this to Michael. Very simple. But they don't write it like that. This is what they say. Radio communications between F1 teams and the race director were identified as another key issue during the analysis. Direct radio communications between F1 teams and race control were made public from early on the 2021 season as part of a broader media strategy. Excite the kiddies. Yeah, make you all think that it's all about a negotiation. It's all about Red Bull and Mercedes being able to negotiate the outcomes in this show. It should be noted that only part of the exchange was made public. Exactly. See, the only things that are made public are the things that Formula One makes public. Formula One makes it public because F1 TV choose to make them public because they want you to be aware of it, because that creates the narrative that they want you to believe is actually taking place. That is what they do. So what we didn't get is all of the communications, and what we didn't get is what the camera was showing of actually taking place in race control during that period. Who was really putting Michael Massey under pressure to break the regulations of that sport, to set up the ending for that sport in the way that he broke the rules to set it up, when everybody had the knowledge that in doing so, in breaking that rules to set up that invalid last lap, there was one competitor with a ridiculous advantage over the other one, and that you're breaking the rules to manufacture that invalid last lap, for which one competitor was then odds on to win it. That's not sport. That's not sporting contest. So that's the end of page 3. Let's just work through if there's any more key considerations regarding the. Now we'll do that in the next video when we talk through the nature of these communications. So we'll pick up on page 4 of 7, and that will be the second part of this. I'm sorry it's a bit boring. I'm sorry that we've not got images of cars, but this is the evidence of the FIA producing a fraudulent report which doesn't address the key aspects of what took place, hides from the world the impact of what took place, the neglect of sporting fairness to all competitors, the invalid interpretations, and therefore the invalid application of their rules perpetrated by their race director, backed up by their stewards, who invited Red Bull in to make that argument which should never have happened. None of that falls within their report. And none of these experts could identify that. Strange that, isn't it? But they've all got a vested interest, haven't they? They've all got a vested interest in the wealth of the show, not upholding the integrity of the show, just the financial interests of the show and the organisation. So that's called corruption. That's called breaking the rules, breaking the regulations, in so doing defrauding the population, acting in breach of law by perpetrating a sporting fix, a sporting fraud, covering it up. And these people are all complicit with that. Every single last one of the people that were on that World Motorsport Council at the time of signing that off on this particular picture, I don't know whether the people involved in this particular picture are the exact people. I would have thought Jean Todt was no longer the president at that time of the FIA. That had become Mohammed Ben Sulayem by then. Whether Todd was still on this World Motorsport Council, I don't know. But it's just giving you an example of the style of people that are presented as being the motorsport experts on the World Motorsport Council. And that World Motorsport Council, evidently, signing off that report, are evidently corrupt and not fit for purpose. So, end of this video. Thank you for your time. Part 2 will be along as soon as I get a chance to make it. Thanks for your time.